Alright my friends, hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're covering something a little bit more serious than what we normally would in your regular scheduled programming on this channel, and that is we're going to take a little bit of a dive into the current UK politics scene. Now this is something I would never normally poke my nose into, but the fact that it's getting ever so close to this whole digital ID thing, and it's actually starting to affect things that I need to do, I need to say something about it. Because if you go on Companies House right now, and try and make yourself a director or change a director in your company, you will be asked to apply for digital ID and you won't be allowed to do it if you don't give them that information. Now, there are some use cases to say that this is a good thing, like for people that are putting up fake names and aliases at the top of companies, and then they'll say, as soon as that company owes a bit of money, they'll leave it and ditch and start a new one, but because it's all fake names, they can't be tracked. So that is going to be locked down a lot better now. But however, if you're just a regular person like me who's running one or more companies, I think 3 companies at the moment, then anytime you want to change something, I've now got to give them my digital ID, my biometric data, everything. At least as soon as I want to change something, I can keep my hands away from it for now, but how long will that last? I do not know. Now, you may be thinking, well, I'm not a company director. How does this affect me? Well, I'll tell you how it affects you. The second you want to apply for a job, you want to drive a car, you want to apply for any sort of benefit system, maybe you have disability or something like that, you'll need it for that. You'll need it to apply for any sort of government document, as well as an absolute ton of other things, some of which I'm going to put on the screen right now. So if you don't think it affects you, you are very, very mistaken. This is going to literally affect everybody. And you may be thinking, well, we live in a democracy. Surely we should be able to vote on what we want and what we don't want. And that is what you would think, having been told we live in a democracy. Well, I'm thinking things are looking a lot more like a dictatorship these days, because we actually put up a petition to stop this digital ID. And the way that petitions work on places like change.org, right? If it gets 100,000 signatures, it makes a bit of noise, going good. But if it gets 1 million signatures, the House of Lords, the place in which the laws are chosen and put forward and rejected, the House of Lords has to review it when it hits 1 million signatures. However, they do not have to do anything that the petition implies or says or what the people want, basically. All they have to do is take it in and review it. Oh, they got 1 million signatures, they don't want the digital ID. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. Ah, piece of shit, mate. We'll put that law in place anyway. So they don't actually have to do it at all. All they have to do is take a look, consider it, and say, nah, we'll keep the law, and then just pass it off to the side, which is why you're seeing that not much has changed after literal millions of UK citizens have signed this petition. Which is ridiculous in my opinion, because as I said, you'd think we live in a democracy. That's what everyone tells us, but it doesn't seem to be that way whatsoever, because if you listen very carefully to the words of Keir Starmer, at first, they try and give you the implication that it's not going to be mandatory, it's going to be optional, you don't have to have it, but if you want to work, eat, sleep, shit, shave, have a wife, you're going to have it. All of those things and much more are on the mandatory list of why you might need this. And he says right now, it's basically to combat criminals and people doing all these illegal activities. Now, if you know me, you'll know I've said many times that they introduce little things like this. Like, for example, let's take a look back at COVID right now, when they introduced the vaccine and the booster. I said at that time that that was most likely a test to see how many people would comply and how easy it would be to get the general population to just say, yeah, sure, we'll take this, we'll take that, without any real personal research. Like, a lot of people didn't look into whether these vaccines or boosters actually helped, which long-term, shock horror, it didn't help. And this is going to be crazy, right? You might think this is a bit conspiracy theory, but I am one of the only people that never got the vaccine, that never got a booster, and I'm the only person I know that never got COVID. Now, that obviously isn't proof at all, because we all know that the vaccine did weaken your immune system to sort of give you the virus, to help you create antibodies to get rid of it. So there is obviously slightly more chance if you do take the vaccine that you'll get it, but I'm just saying. Now, of course, that's not the be all and end all, that is just my personal experience. But it goes without saying that what these governments try and get us to do has been very questionable these last 5, 10, 15 years. And the digital ID is very much pointing us in the direction that this is going towards a dictatorship rather than a democracy. I know I've said that a few times in this video, but I really do believe that is how this country's going. So if you've got the means, if you've got the availability, if you can, I would actually highly recommend getting out while it's still legal to do so, because we know that the digital ID is very similar to the credit score system that they use in China with their citizens. And it wasn't long after that that the Chinese citizens just weren't allowed to leave the country without government permission. I'll put a fact check on screen, but I'm pretty sure that's the truth, but yeah. So there is actually a couple more points that I'd like to touch on before I conclude this video. And that is actually why I think this is such a bad idea. Why do I think the digital ID is a step in the wrong direction? Well, it gives me eerily similar vibes to the whole social credit score system that they have in China. Now, if you don't know much about this, it's basically a centralized platform where the government keeps track of everything that you do. You have a score that tells you how good of a citizen you are. They can rate you based on whether or not you pay back loans on time, how good you are at your job, whether you're showing up late. Basically, every aspect of your life, the government is in there knowing exactly how it runs. And if you want to leave the country, you can't just book a flight and head off on a holiday. You literally have to submit an application to the government to leave your home or to leave the country. You can obviously leave your home and go to work. But yeah, the fact that digital ID is coming to the UK, it very, very, very much reminds me of that. And it's a very slippery slope once things get started. Now, here in the UK, you're only going to need it for a lot of the things that I listed so far, as well as a few more. But it's only a matter of time before we get that sort of score system that's going to tell you, oh, this person's a criminal, don't give them the job, they don't deserve a bank account, they're not allowed to do this, they're not allowed to do that. And it's also only a matter of time before the government here, I believe, is going to start locking down and stopping citizens from willy-nilly flying here, there, and everywhere, because we all know a lot of people, they fly about a lot, and I think the government thinks that a lot of that money they're flying with has not been paid to the taxman. So with that being said, there are so many issues just to get that tax money back that they're trying, when in reality, they're wasting it just as much as the next person. So do they really deserve more money from us? No, certainly not in my personal opinion, but this is the way the world is. They take more, they give us less, and that's capitalism. Anyway, let's conclude this video. That is only one of many things that's going wrong in the UK right now. Like, we had that train stabbing a couple of weeks ago. I was literally on one of the trains, like on that same line, but 6 to 10 hours later. And bear in mind, it was packed to the brim, oversold tickets, overpriced tickets. And I was there with the threat of being stabbed in my own country where the taxes are going up. I'm being forced to give them all my information just to run my companies so I can give them more money. Like, they want to take all this information off me just so I can give them more money, whilst having my own life in danger, and not even on a skateboard for once. To say I've got a lot to speak about is a understatement. So if you want to tap in with that, you've got the Web's free channel that this video is collaborated with. That's going to be the new one for all like content in this realm. Other than that though, thanks for watching. Let me know your own thoughts on the whole situation. I'll see you in the next one.